Graveyards, the resting place of the departed, shrouded in mystery and whispers of the past. As the sun dips below the horizon, these hallowed grounds awaken with a quiet, unsettling energy. The air grows cold and shadows dance between the tombstones, hinting at stories untold and spirits unseen. In the dead of night, it's easy to let your imagination run wild. Do the spirits of the long deceased wander these paths? Are the whispers in the wind merely tricks of the mind, or echoes of the souls that once walked among us? But fear not, for these places hold more than just eerie tales. They are sanctuaries of history, serenity, and a deep, timeless beauty that invites us to explore and reflect. Ever wondered why some people get the chills just thinking about graveyards? For me, it's quite the opposite. I absolutely love visiting cemeteries. They are some of the most peaceful and hauntingly beautiful places to spend time. My fascination with graveyards began when I was 13, after my mother passed away. We travelled to Lisbon for her cremation, and I remember being struck by the beauty and serenity of the huge cemetery there. It was a moment that left a lasting impression on me. Of course, I get why others might feel uneasy. A lot of it has to do with our cultural and psychological baggage. For starters, graveyards are directly linked to death, and that's a pretty heavy topic for many. The idea of death is something people often find unsettling because it's the great unknown. Plus, we've all grown up with spooky stories and legends about haunted graveyards and restless spirits, haven't we? Those ghost stories and horror movies really stick with you, don't they? Think about all those classic horror films like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, or even Shaun of the Dead. They really play up the eerie atmosphere of cemeteries, making them seem like the last place you'd want to be after dark. But honestly, it's not just about spooky stories. There's also something about the atmosphere of graveyards that can be a bit eerie for some. They're usually quiet, isolated, and filled with old weathered tombstones. It's easy to feel a bit creeped out, especially if you're there on a foggy night or in the middle of a thunderstorm. And for some people, it's also about respecting the dead. There's this underlying fear of disturbing those who have passed on. Combine all these factors, and it's no wonder that graveyards can make people feel a little uneasy. But for me, these places are incredibly beautiful and reflective, offering a chance to connect with history and remember loved ones. I find them so inspiring, places where I can truly unwind and let my thoughts wander. Graveyards are probably the least likely places to be haunted, since they're not where people actually died. It makes much more sense that hauntings would occur at the places where people met their end, wouldn't you think? A few years ago, my dad shared something with me that might seem spooky to others. He told me that the house where I first lived as a child had a little graveyard right in the garden where we used to play. I must have known back then, but I'd completely forgotten. Apparently, the grave contained the remains of people who had died during the cholera epidemic of the 1800s. It's kind of eerie to think about now, imagining all those graves beneath our feet as we played. Can you imagine? We were running around, laughing, completely unaware of the history beneath us. Maybe that's where my fascination with graveyards really began. That and losing my mum, perhaps. Did you know that graveyards are teeming with fascinating lesser-known stories and traditions? For example, the term graveyard shift actually originated from the 19th century practice of hiring people to watch over graveyards at night to prevent body snatching. How eerie is that? Speaking of traditions, have you heard of green burials? These eco-friendly burials are becoming more popular nowadays and involve using biodegradable caskets and shrouds with no embalming, promoting a natural return to the earth. Another intriguing fact is that some cemeteries are like secret wildlife preserves. The quiet, undisturbed nature of these places allows flora and fauna to thrive, making them unexpected sanctuaries for wildlife. And then, of course, there are the catacombs. Cities like Paris and Rome have these extensive underground burial sites that house the remains of millions of people. It's like stepping into a hidden world beneath the city streets, offering a unique, albeit eerie, glimpse into historical burial practices. And here's something you might find touching. Some graves have eternal flames that are kept burning to honour the deceased. One of the most famous, and one that I visited myself a few years ago, is at President John F. Kennedy's gravesite in Arlington National Cemetery. These eternal flames serve as powerful symbols of remembrance and respect. Have you ever heard of Abney Park in London? It's one of those old Victorian cemeteries, opened in 1840, and it's got such a fascinating mix of history and nature. Originally an arboretum and non-denominational burial ground, it's now quite neglected, which adds to its eerie charm. Imagine crumbling gravestones surrounded by overgrown trees and wildlife. I bet it feels like stepping into another world. Even though I've never been there, I would love to visit someday. I used it as the setting for the graveyard in my book Daisy Madigan's Paradise, about a young girl who finds solace in a graveyard before she meets a group of teens with special powers. This book is the prequel to my Praxis Academy series, which you can find on Amazon, by the way, shameless plug. Abney Park's gothic eeriness has also made it a popular backdrop for films and TV shows, so if you're ever in London and you're interested in things like this, I'd say it's definitely worth a visit for a unique, slightly haunting experience. Throughout history, different cultures have depicted their burial sites in such fascinating ways. Take the ancient Egyptians, for example. Ever since I was a kid, I've been intrigued by their incredible tombs and the rich mythology surrounding them. For a while, I even dreamt of becoming an archaeologist. Although I didn't take that route, my fascination continued. Egyptian tombs are often portrayed in movies as cursed places, filled with traps and treasures. These depictions, while dramatized, reflect the ancient Egyptians' deep reverence for the afterlife and their intricate burial practices. Did you know that they believed in an elaborate afterlife, and tombs were designed to protect the deceased and their belongings for eternity? They were filled with items the dead might need in the afterlife, like food, jewelry, and even furniture. While the pyramids are the most famous, many tombs are found in the Valley of the Kings, where the tomb of Tutankhamun was famously discovered almost intact in 1922 by Howard Carter. The notion of the curse of the pharaohs gained popularity after this discovery, and while the curse is largely seen as a myth, it added to the intrigue and mystery surrounding these ancient sites. It's somewhere I've always wanted to visit, and I hope one day I might get there. Around the world, burial sites and graveyards are steeped in unique traditions and histories. The Capuchin Catacombs in Italy, I hope I said that right, they house over 8,000 mummies, including the eerily lifelike Rosalia Lombardo. In Iraq, Wadi-us-Salaam, again I hope I'm saying that right, is the largest cemetery in the world, with millions of graves spread over 1,500 acres. The hanging coffins of Sagada in the Philippines are suspended on cliffs to bring the deceased closer to ancestral spirits. How beautiful is that? Romania's Meri Cemetery is known for its colourful tombstones and humorous epitaphs, reflecting a real celebration of life, which is wonderful. And Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn serves as both a burial ground and a historic landmark featuring stunning architecture as well as famous graves. Walking through these spaces, I find a deep sense of peace. Graveyards remind us of the continuity of life and the importance of remembering those who came before us. They are places where history, nature, and reflection converge. I hope this video helps you see the tranquility and historical significance these places hold. Graveyards are so much more than just places for the dead. They are rich with history, culture, and life. So that's it, my little jaunt down to the local cemeteries to show you that it's not scary, it's peaceful and lovely and relaxing. A nice place to just think about life. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!